welcome back. To understand recent political stagnation, labour unrest and the price crisis in Egypt, here are some economic indicators. According to a World Bank report of 2007, the per capita income in Egypt of 2006 doesn't exceed $1,350 per annum. Unemployment is also on the rise. The Arab Labour Report of 2007 indicates that unemployment in Egypt is 10 times higher among educated Egyptians. The official unemployment rate in Egypt in 2008 is about 10% among the youths, or around 5 million people. But opposition say the real figure may be 3 times higher. And despite announced growth rate of 7.3%, Egypt has been hit by a high inflation rate. Hundreds of labour strikes have taken place last year, demanding higher wages to face inflation, which hit 14.4% in the year to March. Now, this has been going on for decades. To give an example, in 1981, a graduate fresh out of university earned about 28 Egyptian pounds in a government job. Back then, his salary would buy 560 kilograms of rice or 35 kilograms of meat. In 2008, the same person who is, say, now head of department earns 730 Egyptian pounds a month. With his current salary, he can buy just 180 kilograms of rice or 21 kilos of meat. Well, soon after he took office in late 1981, President Mubarak took a number of actions that raised the hopes for a lot of people. One of them was Mohammed Hakel, a prominent Egyptian journalist. This is what he had to say.
What I heard from him today really is very promising. And, you know, I, for one, I'm ready to give him all support I can, and I really wish him all success. He's turning a new page in the history of Egypt, and I'm positively sure it will be a very honorable page.
Well, there doesn't seem to have been much success. Mr. Nafa, I mean, Arab was once an example of what could be done in the region, held up as America as the leader of democracy in the region. What went wrong?
A lot of things has went wrong, as a matter of fact, because as I already mentioned before, the crisis in Egypt is not only socio-economic crisis. The socio-economic crisis might be the reflection of a very deep political crisis. We have the same man that has been ruling the country for 27 years now, and they had been following a policy that not only caused a degradation, a social and economic degradation, but also the role of Egypt on the regional and international arena has eroded. And the people feel that it is time for a change, a regime change. It is time for more accountability, for more transparency, and so on. So I do personally believe that the crisis, the essence of the crisis is political. The people need
and surely, Mr. Springborg, I mean, the government needs to clamp down on corruption. Egypt ranked 105 on the World Index of Corruption. Very little can be done until that's addressed.
Well, yes, and it's interesting about the corruption in Egypt. It's found to be both high-level and low-level corruption, pretty well distributed evenly between the two. The fact that you have high-level corruption suggests that it's a political phenomenon as much as it's an economic phenomenon. And indeed, that's what Transparency International suggests, namely that corruption is linked very directly into the highest levels of the political elite as an instrumental part of the strategy of rule in the country. So to imagine that you're going to reform corruption from within is to suggest that the regime is going to undertake a very major house cleaning of itself, and that would be too much to imagine.
And the government certainly seems to have monopolized reform in the country, and that nobody seems to be able to listen to anybody else.
Well, the problem with bringing about reform is that it's not that there's a shortage of reformers. As Dr. Hassan has just indicated, there are plenty of people in the opposition who believe in reform, and there are many in government who believe in reform as well. But you've had a government in power now for 27 years. This is a very, very long time, and a large number of individuals have been associated with that regime in power, the hardliners as they're commonly called, and these gentlemen want to simply hang on as long as they possibly can.
Okay, but they can't possibly, excuse me interrupting, hang on as long as they possibly can. Mr. Syed, what do you think is going to happen next? I mean, should Mr. Mubarak now step down? He's 80 years old, his son is hanging around in the wings, and he's been groomed to take over.
I must tell you, you are marshalling all the bad news about Egypt, but I guess the situation is much more complex than that.
Okay, I'm trying to look forward.
The reality that President Mubarak will be retested. What you are talking about, you don't talk about that $11 billion of foreign investment are running to the country, that the stock market in Egypt is soaring up.
Okay, but why is this not going down to the poor? Why is there such disparity? Isn't that the issue here? It is making money, yes, it is growing economically, but nobody else other than the governing party is getting it.
You are mixing issues together. I don't mind to talk about the political issues and then the economic issues. Let's just finish one by one. Actually, in the per capita income in Egypt, if you measure it by the purchasing power of dollar, it is slightly less than $5,000. And Egypt was ranked #1 about the most reforming countries last year. And also, as the country is going up, certainly the country is getting a lot of problems, but Egypt is not in any way in a crisis. I mean, Egypt is not Iraq, is not Lebanon, is not Palestine, is not even Jordan, or any of other countries in the region.
Okay, but everyone is talking about political reform, so I'm trying to explore what opportunities Egypt now faces for political reform. Who will take over from Mubarak? Will he step down?
Well, we have elections in 2011. I guess by then the age of the president probably will prevent him from rerunning again. And we will look at what kind of backup candidates is in 2011. I mean, for the time being, for today, there is no elections in Egypt because it is not the time for elections.
Okay, Mr. Springbok, where do you believe that Egypt is now heading?
Well, I think the issue of succession, despite the fact the elections in 2011 are indeed scheduled, the president is now 80 years of age. Everyone in Egypt is trying to calculate their position vis-a-vis the succession. Will Gamal make it? Is the military going to step in? What role will the security forces play? Will the new constitutional revisions be adhered to? What role will the National Democratic Party play? In short, there's so many questions about this succession with so few answers that it underscores the political fragility of the country. And as I was saying in my opening remarks, there are people that watch Egypt closely, especially from London, a seat of global financial power. And the fact that there are so many questions about not only the economy now, but also about the political durability of the incumbent regime, that Egypt is under threat. And it's under threat from people who would say, well, we've had our money there, but we don't want to leave it there. And that would put enormous pressure on the country. So the fact that we have so many unanswered political questions doesn't bode well for the future.
And we certainly can't answer them all in this very short half an hour. But thank you, Mr. Springbok, for your time. Also, Mr. Syed and Mr. Nafa. And of course, you viewers, thank you very much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Goodbye for now.